Hey guys, as promised, I'm going to deliver a Recon demonstration to you via this video. What I'll do is I'll walk through a simple scenario of a reconciliation of holdings, and I'm going to demonstrate the tool, and we'll walk through setting it up and evaluating the reports. So let's begin. The Recon Tool needs to have input a particular SQL database or view. In this case, I have two sample tables created, and they could just as well be views that are simulating holdings from an OMS system and one from, say, a counterparty table. I set up the scenarios where there's differences in quantity, there's different columns, names. One has more records than the other, so this Tesla doesn't appear in the other one. And also some of the searching for matches, where we have an instance where a QSIP in this apple won't match up with the QSIP, but the ISIN does. So I'll show how the tool is still smart enough to try a couple scenarios. So let's begin. The first thing we have to do is we need to tell the Recon Tool what our data sources are. So we can just simply point our data, let's call this is going to be the counterparty holdings, and we have to give it the table name in our database. Actually, this was this one. And you have to tell it what field signifies the report. This one don't worry about. Here it'll just to also give it the database name. Okay, so now we just refresh the schema, and just in case we can override if the schema is anything that didn't map appropriately. So that's the counterparty table, and let's do the same for the other side. So now we'll do the OMS table. Keyboard sticking. Give it the report date, refresh that, and here's our schema for the other side. After we save these two, now we can create a new Recon report. So let's give our name, we'll call it holdings. And this is where we set up the two sources. So one is going to be the OMS side versus the counterparty side. Now we're, like in any reconciliation, we first try to map the data to a common layer, and then we create a key off of the identifiers. So in our database here, I'll just drag my thing to the side. Let's say first we're going to reconcile by QSIP, and it's going to pull in the columns there, QSIP, and see they have different names, right? OMS had this as a name for the QSIP, and this had this, and here we tell that this is going to be an ID, which we'll use it in the Recon rules. And then we also have an ISIN. This is also an ID, and we have a portfolio, I believe, field. So this could be the portfolio field or the fund field. This had the same name. And now what are we reconciling? Well, there was a quantity. Let's do quantity. Quantity, and that is not an ID, and I think there's also a market value. See, they have different column names. So now we've mapped what market value means for source 1 and source 2, what quantity means for source 1 and source 2. That's good. And now we create our matching rules. So we're going to match, what we call a key is when we match on QSIP and portfolio, but we can try numerous paths, as we call it. So if we don't match, we search both sides to see which ones match on QSIP and portfolio. If those don't match, then we also want to try on ISIN and portfolio. The combination of those two create a key. This is going to say what do we want to, the non-IDs, what do we want to show, and we want to summarize against the quantity. And this means that basically, let's say if we had a 2 for 1, let's say we had 2 apple positions on one side and one on the other, this will sum them up to create a match. We also had a market value, and we do that. So we can sum that. And additionally, just to show this, you can create in the report multiple columns. So let's just say we had another, you'll see this, another tab where we wanted to show just market value. I'll just show you that capability as well. We do that as well. And this, let's call that holdings. And then finally is the output. So now the tool defines, it creates these columns by demand, on the fly. And this matched means this is ID matched. This is going to be our title, OMS Holdings. This is the counterparty quantity. Sorry. Actually, let's call it. Oh, it's easier to see. Quantity. This is the diff. This is the quantity matched. Let's do MVOMS. And let's make it a number. This is the MV counterparty. This is the difference. This is whether that matched, and we'll see the results of that. And then finally, we just publish it. And now this report is defined. So you see here now is our holding reports, and you can click on the report. So here are the results. And I'll explain them in a second, but we can also do these filters to view things. So the Recon tool shows we can create these custom filters. So let's just do like matched, and it'll show you in a second what this means. This is a one-time thing for this report, but for instance, let's just see like the results of our quantity. Our quantity matched, and then another maybe where ID matched. Or we want to filter on portfolio. So here is our display field. So that's a one-time thing. Oh, and let's say we want to also show the quantity. Here we can see the count of the items as well. Okay, so if we want to update the data underlying it, we can refresh. But here are the results, and here are the 2 tabs that I showed. And let's walk through this. So basically, you can use these filters now. And the quantity filter is smart enough to tell you whether you just have a big break, whether your break is 0 to 110%. So in this case, we have a small break. A true means it's an exact match, or it can be greater than 20%. Let's just do also one filter here. It's for MV matching. Just to show the variance. Okay, there. So now we can quickly just see your summary. So you want to go in here, okay, this is our one match, or the break of 10%. What additionally we can do is we can also tag breaks. So to help in investigation, one thing is first identifying, why. The first step in any recon process is identifying, mapping everything into one common layer, then showing the differences. And now we want to show the differences, and finally we want to explain them to track them for further follow-up. So we have a utility here. We can add a tag. So let's say, I don't know, in this case here, see the Tesla position we knew was missing in counterparties. So we can tag it and say, I don't know, unknown. And here, just showing you, like if you want to highlight a couple things, you can multiple tag things. And you can set the color. And so now that row will be there. So if you want to filter on unknown, because as this list gets very big, tagging helps you organize your details. I gotta do all of them. And then of course you can output to Excel the results of the reconciliation. And we can use high grade, which I showed you, to pull that in, so you don't even have to do that step. We can set up a query to display the results. So that is the reconciliation tool. I hope it was helpful, and I will follow up with you guys after I return. Okay, have a nice Memorial Day.